Now, let's move to the last topic of today is about the question banks. Question banks, here, we have finished deploying, now question banks. How to create question banks in Blackboard. Question pool is a collection of questions that is stored for repeated use. Then question bank in Blackboard, we call it question pool. And you can use pools to create tests and surveys. You can also export and import pools for use in test and other courses. Instructors typically use pools to create a database of questions they can reuse in multiple tests. And when you create a test in the original course view, you can use random blocks to be sure each student receive a different version of the test. Random blocks draw questions from pools only, so you must first create at least one question pool. Let's watch together this video.
In this video, we're going to look at how to build a test in Blackboard using Blackboard's test creation tools. Rather than simply build a test, we're going to show you how you can use question pools and random blocks questions to make it more difficult for students to cheat through collaboration and answer sharing. To get started creating a test using question pools, open the Course Tools header, then choose Test Surveys and Pools. If you plan to create, say, a 45 question test using only 45 questions, you could go straight to Tests and then click Build Test and start adding questions. But we want to create a 45 question test that pulls questions randomly from a pool of 75 questions. This will result in each student getting essentially a different test, different questions in a different order. So instead, on the Test Surveys and Pools page, we'll start out by clicking Pools. Creating tests this way often raises concerns about the validity and fairness of the test. If questions are being pulled from a pool, how can we be sure each student is being tested on all the objectives? Particularly when a pool is large relative to the number of questions. Well, the best way to do this is to create multiple question pools. For this example, we're creating a test for Module 1. Module 1 has 3 objectives. So we want 2 question pools for each objective. One consisting of questions that test for basic understanding, which I've labeled competent, and one that tests for deeper understanding, which I've labeled proficient. Depending on the particulars of your test, you may want to break your questions up into fewer or more pools, but hopefully this example gives you an idea of how you can use multiple pools to improve validity while using randomization. So let's look at how to create a pool. First, we click Build Pool. And then we enter a name for our pool, and if we'd like a description. Then we click Submit. Before we start adding questions, let's look at the question settings. Here we can set a number of defaults for what appears on the question page. For example, if we want to include feedback for each individual answer option, we can check this box here, or if not, we can leave this unchecked. The same goes for images, files, and web links. If we want to add an image, file, or a web link to each individual answer option, we can do that here. Or if we want to include that for feedback, we can add that here. Similarly, if we want to include or not include metadata, we can have this box checked. If we want to set a default point value for questions, we can enter that here and check this box. It was 2. And then we can change some display options here. So we'll leave this at sort of the default settings. And now let's look at creating a question. Just point to create question, and you see there's a number of question types available. We're not going to go into every single type that's on this list. Instead, let's focus on the multiple choice question type, which is one of the most commonly used, just to look at some of the things that are most common about how the question setup works. You'll notice there's a space for question title. This is sort of a short reference point for each question. You can have a title. It's not required. You notice on the pool page, once we set things up, the full question doesn't appear by default. So if you put in a good question title, you can identify what the question is without having to see the full question text. Then next is the space for the question text, where you put in the prompt. And then under options, the options are going to vary depending on the type of question you're doing. For multiple choice, I have the option to change the answer numbering style if I want no numbering style.
Guys, I want to skip this one since we already done it. Okay. We already done the multiple questions. Okay, it's only creating now he is moving here. Okay.
And add this question and then perhaps add a question of another type. So here, through the magic of editing, we have all of our questions added. A few things about this pool canvas page. If I click the options button next to the pool name, I can edit the name of the pool or the description of the pool. And also, as I had mentioned, you by default only see a brief preview of the question text. If you want to see the full question text, just point to question display and choose full text. If you want to see the question and the answer options, click the little pop-out window button, and that'll show you the full question details. A last option here that's kind of neat is if you want to delete individual, you can check the boxes and hit delete. If you want to set a point value, a default point value for questions, check the boxes and then put in a point value here and hit update. And that'll apply that point value to all the questions. It's not important to have a point value on questions in a pool when we're going to be pulling those questions in at random, though. You'll see that when we create the test, that works a little differently. So I've got our pool all set up. We will go back out to the pools page. Just one item here. If you want to edit any of these pools, just click the options button next to the pool and choose edit, and that'll get you back to the pool canvas page. Now let's create the test. Back at the test surveys and pools page, we'll click test.
Okay,
And
I
then
will move to the next video. Is better now. Then after creating a pool, now we can create tests.
When creating a test, you can use random blocks to ensure that each student receives a different version of the test. A random block is a set of questions retrieved at random from one or more question pools to be presented each time the test is taken. This tutorial shows you how to create a random block, add the random block questions to a test, edit the number of questions to a display, and edit the points per question. To begin, create or access a test. You can access the Tests tool in the Course Tools section of the control panel. We will edit an existing test and add a random block. Access the test's contextual menu and select Edit. On the test canvas, point to Reuse Question on the action bar to access the drop-down list and select Create Random Block to begin searching for questions. In the Create Random Block pop-up window, select one or more pools. Random blocks draw questions from pools only, not other tests. Narrow your search by selecting at least one question type to include in the test. All questions that meet the criteria appear on the right side of the pop-up window. Click Submit. A success message states the random block of questions has been added to the test. Next, assign the number of questions to display to students. Use a number less than the total number of questions to be sure that different questions are presented each time the test is accessed. Click Submit. The same point value is assigned to each question in the random block. You cannot assign separate point values for individual questions in the same random block. Therefore, you may want to only include questions of approximately the same difficulty. Click Preview Questions that match selected criteria to expand or collapse the list of questions. You can view and edit individual questions. You cannot delete questions in the random block. Click OK at the bottom of the page to return to the Tests page. Let's review. First, access a test. Then, create a random block. Add the random block of questions to the test. Edit the number of questions to display. Edit the points per question. And submit.